I've come to Namibia in southern Africa to take on one of the toughest challenges in Blue Peter's history. The Namibia Ultramarathon is among the hardest endurance events in the world.
I can't believe I've got sunburn.
If I'm to complete it, I'll have to cover 78 miles in 24 hours through the oldest desert on Earth.
So difficult.
I'll have to battle through the extreme heat of the day and the total darkness of the night.
I don't want to stop. I really don't want to stop.
Namibia is 5,000 miles from the UK in southern Africa.
I'm headed out to the camp where I'm going to stay until the race starts, and this is probably wrong, but I don't feel nervous. I just feel excited. This place is amazing. It seems like a really beautiful country. The whole thing is worlds away from where I started back in January.
My preparations began in the depths of winter. Most ultra runners start training for their events as much as a year beforehand. I had just 3 months. After finishing my first race, I called my coach Rory to tell him how I'd got on. I was in for a surprise.
Running quite happily, I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
Rory hadn't come to celebrate with me, he'd come to get me to do even more miles.
Are you kidding or not?
No, I'm not kidding.
I was glad to see you 2 minutes ago. This is not fun anymore.
I didn't find it easy, but I knew I needed to be constantly pushing how far I could run.
I know there's not far to go. I know I have to stay positive. I don't want to.
After that first training weekend, things intensified massively. Within a few weeks, I did my first long-distance run, a 26.2-mile marathon through the streets of London. I enjoyed my first marathon.
It feels so good when you do it.
Well done.
But much tougher times lay ahead.
These hailstones actually hurt. They hit me in the face so hard.
The most intense part of my training took place in Cumbria, where I grew up.
It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I've got a day of running ahead of me.
This was where I attempted my longest single run before Namibia, 50 miles in one day.
We're going to run for about the first 50 minutes, then we're going to go into a run-walk all the way to the football ground. It's a long, long way.
Having my friends and family there to cheer me on helped me through the final miles. After 12 hours, I made it to the end.
Well done. Excellent.
3 weeks before coming to Namibia, I went to Morocco in North Africa. My ultimate challenge takes place in a desert, so I needed to find out if I could handle running in the heat. It wasn't long before I started suffering.
This is really happening, and I really am going to Namibia to attempt to run 78 miles. It's going to be like this, only harder and hotter.
I got through my marathon in Morocco, but I knew the Namibia race would be 3 times as long in temperatures far hotter.
I know I can do these.
After 3 months of training, I'd covered a total distance of 747 miles. I'd trained for 190 hours and run 10 marathons. Now, there was just one challenge left. The 2009 Namibia Ultramarathon was now just hours away. For the 23 of us who were going to attempt it, it was time for final preparations. Steve, the race director, needed to make sure we all had the right equipment in our backpacks.
Okay, Helen, shall we go through your kit?
This seems like a lot of stuff.
So the running shoes that you're going to be
I'm carrying all my own food and cooking equipment, enough water to get me between checkpoints, and emergency supplies like a first aid kit.
It's just a lot to carry, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's why it's a tough challenge.
Thanks, Steve.
Next was a medical briefing from Amy, the race doctor. I knew what I was about to do was extreme, but Amy left none of us in any doubt about the dangers lying ahead.
The first thing with this race is it's an endurance race, okay? It's 24 hours or 15 to 24 hours depending on how fast you're running, and it's hot. And all of you this morning have experienced the heat, and heat stroke is the most severe of all the heat-related illnesses. Your symptoms will be headache. I'm sure all of you will suffer a headache during this race. Nausea and vomiting. Vomiting is a particularly important sign, okay, and you need to be letting us know if you're vomiting. Muscle cramps. One of the guys last year we pulled and he had spasms that was so agonising he was in tears, okay. Dizziness, confusion and irritability, and those signs are late signs, and those signs are significant signs as well, and we need to be acting on those. So please let someone know if you're feeling unwell.
I think the medical briefing was meant to make us all take this really, really seriously. It's actually really freaked me out.
I needed reassurance, so I spoke to the runners who came first, second and third in last year's race.
Yeah, you're letting yourself in for a bit of a shock. It's like being in an oven. It's an incredibly beautiful place, but it's very hard to enjoy because you're struggling with heat exhaustion all the time. And remember, you're carrying all that weight of water and food and medical equipment on your back.
Focus on all the positive things that you've done in your training that have given you results, and you focus on that as you go into the race.
If it's very difficult, think about a couple of positive mental points. There will be times when you will be very dark, but then you can also bring yourself out of that.
I went to bed that night with a lot on my mind.
My head is scrambled right now. Totally scrambled. This is the biggest thing I've ever taken on in my life. And I can't mess it up. I really don't want to mess it up. There's less than an hour until we start this race, so I have some recorded messages from my friends and family that I'm going to watch, and hopefully these are going to give me a bit of a boost and something to think about when I want to quit.
I know that out of anybody that I've ever met in my life, you are going to do it, I have no doubt.
You're going to do this, you're a winner, eye of the tiger, stay positive.
Hi Helen, really proud of you, and I know you're going to do it because you're always so determined. Okay, love you loads.
Having support like this is what's going to get me through it, because I haven't done the years and months of training that these lot have. It is in my head whether I can do it or not. It's about whether I can be positive and get myself to the finish.
She's been training for the last 4 months or so, which is a quite short period for a race like this. I'm looking at probably 1 or 2 runners coming out for probably heat-related illness problems, maybe an injury as well, so that can often stop someone running.
The race was now just moments away. Ahead of all of us, a 78-mile route divided into 6 stages by checkpoints every 13 miles. We have 24 hours to get to the finish on Namibia's Atlantic coast. This was it. The race I'd been preparing for months was underway, and although I knew it was going to be hard, it felt great to be getting stuck in.
It's really warm already, and it's just the start of the race. And the thing that I didn't think about is how sandy and how difficult underfoot it's going to be. There are holes and branches and all kinds of things. And the grass is knee length. Not easy to run in. It's a bit weird, I'm actually enjoying this. I just feel like I have been preparing for this for 3 months now, and this is the end, this is the final challenge. So, I'm just going to enjoy it.
Not everyone was enjoying themselves though. The race was still in its early stages, but already some of the other runners were struggling to keep going.
Let's be honest, I felt wiped from half an hour in. Absolutely. Spent like I haven't slept for days. I think it's just the heat. It's like being smacked.
The heat had claimed its first victim. Steve's race was over. Checkpoint 1 was a wake-up call for everyone taking part in the event. We were only a sixth of the way through the race, and runners were already dropping out.
2 runners we've had to pull at the moment. One who has just been a bit slower, he's feeling the heat a bit. Second runner is actually suffering from probably a heat-related illness. He's not able to cool his body down and he's needing a lot of water. And these are the early signs of a heat stroke.
No one expected this many casualties so early on.
On we go.
And as I was about to leave the first checkpoint, another shock.
You alright?
One of the strongest runners in the field, Andy, had hurt his back and was out of the race.
That's actually quite shocked me. Andy did this last year and came second, and he was helping me through this, and he's just pulled out of the race because he's struggling. And one of the guys who was leading, he's pulled out as well. This has stepped up a gear, hasn't it?
It was now the hottest part of the day. The temperature in the desert had risen to 43 degrees. I needed to pace myself to have any chance of surviving the heat.
If I run now, I'm going to be exhausted and I won't be able to get through 78 miles, but if I walk in this bit of the day, I should be able to finish. It's hard because I want to run, because I want this to be over, I want to get through it, but I've got to be sensible, and the fact that people have dropped out already at the first checkpoint proves that you can't take this lightly, you've got to be sensible about it.
I put loads of cream on this morning. I don't normally burn, but then I don't normally hang out in Africa, do I?
I can't believe I've got sunburn.
I was desperate to push through the heat, so I decided to run again. Bad idea. Before long, I started to feel sick. My body simply couldn't cope. My race was about to grind to a halt.
I'm so hot and so thirsty, and I feel sick, and I feel really sick. I can't talk about how hard it is because it just puts my head in a really bad place, but please just take my word for it, this is so hard. It's so difficult. Oh, it's just my legs are burning. I don't know what to do either. I keep been drinking all the stuff, but... Right. Well, I've lost the plot, don't I? I kept saying before, every time I put my feet to the ground, it's one step nearer to the end. Actually now, it feels like every time I put my feet to the ground, you know when you stub your toe? That's what it feels like. But every step. Stub, 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 stub. So I am going to do this in a minute. Right.
One of the other runners, Fran, caught up with me. It was time to get back on the move.
Thanks, Fran.
Rock and roll, baby.
Being with Fran was just the distraction I needed.
How far do you reckon to the next checkpoint?
With the worst of the heat over, I pushed on to checkpoint 2, the 26-mile mark.
You look better than the rest of us.
It's a marathon.
This was a massive relief. It didn't take long to see that I wasn't the only one suffering. By now, 6 of the original 23 runners were out of the race.
I just thought this would be a good point to read some of your messages, because quite frankly I need the motivation.
Everybody's just saying, believe in yourself, just keep going. And you're right, I've got to keep going. And I will, promise.
With your good luck messages in my head and some clean clothes, I was ready to set off again.
I've dealt with the heat, only just. Now I've got to deal with the night.
Ahead of me, 10 hours of darkness and 2 more marathons.
I got a real boost coming out of that checkpoint because it wasn't just me that suffered, everybody found it hard. And I'm slightly concerned that everyone who was behind me has either dropped out or been stopped. So it's kind of like time's snapping away at my heels, so I've really just got to get on with this now. Whoa! Oh my lord, this is hard!
we were closing in on the next checkpoint, the halfway mark of the 78 miles.
Come on, come on, come on. Positive, positive, positive. I can do this. I can so do this. How you going, Stu?
How's your feet?
Oh, agony. I just stubbed my toe.
Yeah.
How's your blister? Oh, nice. Come on, Stu, we can do it.
Checkpoint 3 at last. We were 1.5 marathons in. It was here that you could really see the toll this race was taking. By now, a third of the field had dropped out. Those of us who were still in it were suffering with tired bodies, broken spirits, and in my case, battered and blistered feet.
Aha! Oh, that is so sore.
With a hot meal inside me, it was time to push on.
Being in there is really making me realise how tough this is, but it's motivating me. I'm gonna get through.
I was feeling positive again, but within minutes, the pain from my blisters became unbearable.
Honestly, my feet are unbelievably sore. I've never had a single blister. Why have I got 10 or 15 today? Oh my God! Oh my! Every step is agony, and every time you stand on a rock, it feels like someone shoved some sort of razor blade into your foot. This is intense pain. Oh my! Oh.
I was in serious trouble. I desperately needed the pain in my feet to go away.
I cannot quit, I cannot quit, I cannot quit.
I was running out of options. Amy, the medic, offered to pop and drain my blisters in the hope it might give me some relief.
Yeah. Oh! Ow!
Amy had done all she could for me, but the agony continued. For the first time, I had to seriously consider quitting the race.
I don't think this moment in time, I can't keep going. I can't put my feet down. I don't want to stop. I really don't want to stop.
The pain in my feet was terrible, but the thought of giving up was even worse. Checkpoint 4 wasn't far. If I could get there, I'd be 2/3 of the way through the race.
Where is everyone?
They've all come and gone, nearly.
I was going to have to sit down for 2 minutes.
Yeah, lie down.
I'm worried about time.
Yeah, well, we're on about 3:05 at the moment, 3:10.
This was bad news. I'd arrived at checkpoint 4 half an hour after Amy had planned to close it. I was still in the race, but only just.
Okay.
All right.
Still got to pick it up.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't not do it. I can't not finish.
Get yourself sorted with water and food. And then think about the time.
I'll never eat cereal bar ever again. Oh. Ow.
Oh. This was now a race against time. I'd been awake for 21 hours. It was 18 hours since the race started, and I still had a marathon to go. If I was to have any hope of finishing the race in time, I'd have to run the final 26 miles quicker than any marathon I'd done before.
I've just seen Fran go by in one of the support vehicles. He's either stopped or he's been stopped. And he got me through the hardest part of the race, so I'm gutted that he's finished. And I'm pretty sure now there's no one else behind me. Everybody's dropped out of the race. I'm up against time, so I've got to get on with this. I don't want to be the next person stopped.
It was now day 2 of the race.
Come on, me!
I was closing in on checkpoint 5.
Come on, Helen. Come on. I can do this. This is it. It all comes down to this last half marathon. I've got one half marathon to go. I am so close. I cannot stop. I have to do it. I just keep thinking about all the nights I spent in the gym, staying in there on my own till 9:30, Billy no mates, getting up early to go for a run or fit in training before work, and come down to this, and that's why I did it. So I've really just got to push on. One half marathon is so doable.
Checkpoint 5, the final stop before the finish.
Well done. Go on, Michael. Well done, Helen. Brilliant effort.
Smiles back.
Well done, Helen.
Brilliant effort.
Well done. Brilliant. You know, very proud of yourself.
Thank you. I'll see you in a bit.
At previous checkpoints, I'd stopped for as long as an hour, but this wasn't the time to stop. After a 2-minute break, I was back on the move.
There's a long way to go, so I shouldn't get carried away, but I'm feeling good. Soon, I'll be into single figures.
The final few miles were hard, but I kept telling myself that the worst was over. The finish line was now so close, quitting was not an option.
One final push and this is all over.
The finish line was in sight. After 23 hours and 50 minutes, I made it with just 10 minutes to spare.
Thank you. Oh. That is nice, is it? Do you know what, Freya? Freya's been with us all week and I kept thinking, if I don't finish it, she's going to think, why? And I could just picture her sad face. That is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. And there were 2 occasions when I thought, I can't do this. I thought I was going to pull out twice. Well done, you. Sir?
Well done.
With the last runners across the line, the race was over. But there was one more surprise for me. My mum. She'd come all the way from the UK to see me at the finish.
I had no idea you were coming.
Well done, I'm so proud.
People never get on the plane to Africa, she doesn't like long flights.
What she managed to achieve with the training, the short time that she had for training was absolutely incredible. She came 8th out of a field of 23. I think if you finish this, it's mainly down to your mental strength.
She literally had the attitude, I just finished this race, and she did that, and she did it with a lot of pain in her feet as well. She did fantastically well on this event.
When I started this, I kind of wanted to find out something about myself, and I kind of wanted to know what I was capable of, but it soon became about not letting people doubt you. And do you know what? If anybody says you can't do anything, just get your head down and get on with it, because you probably can.